I know the Galaxy House, it was very, like, just wow. Like, just look at it. It's amazing, man. It's just real, I want to say flow. There's a lot of movement. Like, imagine going through here. You're coming in and you're going around. And as you come around, you start to see everything feel like it's coming closer. But it's really not you. It's really not moving. It's just that static feel from the brain of it just feeling like it's flowing like a river. And then you going inside, you see the same thing. Continuous lines. Continuous parallel floating lines. But in a sense of static feel to a continuous movement. Like a very good, well designed project. Like very good. Janae Gang. This woman right here designed a lot of stuff with a 36 team studio. That's very impossible to do, but she made it possible. Because usually there's maybe at least 50 to 100 people in one studio. Because you have to account for the structural engineers, the contractors that you need to hire, the mechanical engineers, and also the civil engineers. So that's like very big. She is like the most recognized today, next to somebody I like personally that I'm gonna mention later. But she is very, she developed the scheme of using topography and typography as facade skin. Now that may sound weird, but I will get into it. She uses that to imply topography and typography to buildings based off of what she wants to texturize. So she has a thing for, I guess, textural fill through elevational production. The reason being was she was very devoted to sustainability. Now, sustainability is the way airflow or heat and cold come through a house. Or I want to say move through a house between seasons. Like, she was very obsessed with it, and she used sustainability and her technology to achieve many buildings that she processed with her 3016. This being the first, this building right here is the Aqua Tower. She used the wavatures of when you drop something in water and it disrupts it. Like, it kind of like moves. She displayed that in the tower as a texture and a wrap. Now, these are not just looks. So these are also patios and balconies. They're not just there just to be there, because that wouldn't make any sense. Just have a design. Like, basically, you know, that'd be a waste of time. So she made them into balconies. And if you look at it straight on, it will look just like just regular lines. But when you look at it from an angle, if not straight on, it looks like this. Like, see, it always will stand out. The SOS Community Center. Here she implied the topography of mountains, as you can see here. And then you have the gravel content, which is what type of gravel is in the mountains, and then you have the sediment layers as well. And here she wanted to imply a cave. As we know, mountains have a lot of empty places or vacant areas from volcano active times back in the past. So here she wanted to imply the cavatures around with the sediment levels. Very, very nice project. Like the facade, I want to say it could have been more, but it was just the right amount based off the floor planning and everything. And here we have one of her best projects, the mirror twisting towers. So here she wanted to imply the effect of static movement. It means you could be standing still, but when your eyes look at it, it feels like it's moving in a way. Like it's kind of messing with your, it messes with your eye receptors. So your eye receptors are telling you that it's still, but it's also feeling like it's turning or going to like turn over as well. And it was a lot of offsetting. So here you can see, you can figure out the pattern if you look closely. She basically offsetted everything in a way that she felt nobody could get. But haha, I got it, yeah, I figured it out. So look, we go here, and here, and here, and then so on. She basically twisted everything up, but it's not really twisted. All she did was offset and turn it. Like it's complicated to explain. You'd have to actually go in and dig for more information about it. Kazuya Sumajamu, aka the Sana Fern. This is what she was all about. She loved to play with metal squares and cubes, but she was also into glass and metal surfaces for vernacular designs. So like her, she was like other women in the past, she was also in the shadow of men architects. So she took a student and former co-worker of her when she was at Toyo Ito and opened up a firm called Sana. Now Sana is one of the top companies in the world today because of how she displays her vernaculars with glass and cube structures. So her main thing was right here. She based her designs off family conditions and living house conditions. So she didn't want to be traditional. She wanted to build and design based off what it should be, not what it wants to be or what it has to be, but what it should be. Meaning, if a family is in need of, let's say, water, then she wants to base the housing based off water, not just put a bigger towel and put a bigger tub in there and then get a pool in the back. No, she basically wanted to get away from tradition. Now it's not a traditional reject, as I put here. It's not a traditional reject, but it was a challenge to process designs based on what something should be. That's what she wanted. And in here, designs were based on the arrangement of curves to the surface, and she purposely used the typical plane of house format to base assumptions on reality that houses illustrate conditions a family wants to live in. Not what it should be. It should always be what they need, not what they want. Like when you want something, it'll always be something that will just be temporary. Like something you can temporarily have versus something you need. Something you need can always last a long time. The Sumida Hakusa Museum. Now here, she played with a lot of glass in the inside. As you can see, like when you walk up to it, right here, you pull in here or here, and then you see the glass where it's slanted in, and it's cut into triangular facades. Now she loved playing with glass, but she also loved having I want to say metal sheeting to the outside. Now this, I'm not being childish, but this reminds me of the if you go look it up on YouTube, look up GameCube starter logo, and it will remind you just of this logo. And I feel like that's where she got most of her idea from, because you see the end here, and then you see the rest of it as just a mass. You know, look that up. It may be something different. Here we have the Rolex Center. This is basically a motherboard. As you can see, the little notches that she implied as skylights. Not these big windows, these big openings, but these notches right here. She took a motherboard from a chronological Rolex watch, and she bent it and maneuvered it in a way that she felt it could be implied to the ground. And as you can see here, it's very implied and thought of carefully through the ground with a full facade. And then here you have structural lightings with a lot of mullions, but there's a lot of metal that I want to say can open for the vegetation they have in the areas. And then here we have the New Museum of Contemporary Art. Like, doesn't this look familiar? Here. She was playing with it. She knew what she was doing. That in a sense, she used that and came up with an art building that has a static relation of tangency. So each two levels went up. You have this tangency of things that come together. And the lighting, you shouldn't be so much worried about because it's an art museum. So she didn't want as much lighting because it may destroy some of the rare artifacts and visuals inside. But it's very thought of. It's very simple, but it's complex. Like, it's hard to obtain. Like, this is not just like some baby just stacking blocks and just calling it that. This is like I want to say more creativity of static tendency. And here, my favorite, Meaty gonna like this one. Oh, down there. Yes, a French architect and urban planner, born in Laval, France. And she, like it or not, she went to the same studio that some of the architectural women from the early 1900s, I think it was Marion Mahoney Griffin, or either Louise Bethune, or it may have been Julia Morgan. I think it was Julia Morgan, because it can't be Denise Scott Brown. It can't be. But she established her own firm and named it after herself. So she kind of went with the Oprah Winfrey thing and started naming everything after her so it could be known by her. And then she opened an institute, a Confluence Institute, in 2014. So that was a big thing. So her partnership, like everybody else, is with somebody big, and hers just happened to be with Benoit Cornet. Now, if you don't know who Benoit Cornet is, he was a very, very, I want to say, vague architect, but he had some great things. Him and Peter Rice as well. Peter Rice. She also partnered with Peter Rice on some buildings, but they were very, very, very vague, I want to say. Now, this age, her architecture, I want to say, relates to mine the most, as I said earlier, because just like her, I use modular parts to create and design what I know. Now, I don't do this just because I want to, show off. I do this because I want to see what I'm building, and that way, when I see what I have, I can change things. I can make it test feasible because they're modular parts, and I can change these things and move them around to achieve what I'm actually looking for, you know? And she also, to pay her education, she had to work under, you see that name? Felipe Buda. Now, that's a big name, but I want to say he used her. Like, not in a, well, it was a bad way, but it wasn't a full use. So he used her in the sense of studying linguistics and literatures. I was doing recording video. He's using the study of linguistics and literatures, but was awarded the 2015 doctorate honoris causa. In 2016, the Jane Drew Prize also achieved the 2017 Lifetime Achievement Award. Now, this award was something very, very big because I didn't see too many architect women with it, but I know there may have been some that probably have won it before her, but she's the only one I've seen by far with it, so, you know. And her phrase was, if you was to build and create the new century, you have to have people who have specific personalities. Now, this means if you're trying to create a new century just by upgrading and just making it look like similar but newer to the new century, then you're not actually trying to make a new century. So her implying is that you have to have people that have special, like very, very, very different personalities and different ideas. So you want to get as many people as you can who don't all have the same thing or same ideas in common. They want to create something that's different from what's going on now, and not just upgrading it to something that looks similar or just a little newer than that. Like, you want to create a new century, you want to be as, I want to say different as possible, but you want to be that new thing that can't be interrupted. Like here we have the Museum of Contemporary Art, which is MARCO. And she wanted to imply the floating of a building with nothing but structure as well. Now, you see this? Now, I'll tell you about this later, but this is very important right here. But here she wanted to imply the floating of a building with glass structure and an overhang of just a big floor with girders. Big floor with girders. That's it. Here we have the Tangshan National Geopark Museum. Now, this is my kind of architecture right here. Like, the design is like, I want to say half, like 75% flawless. Like here, there's a flow where it doesn't break the ground. It rolls into it and divides on its own and comes right back into the pavement. Like, it feels like it's uninterrupted. But the thing is, it's interrupted here. Like, it's just like a stop. Like, I don't want to say that's a bad, but it's like, it feels like it's like everything here flows and then it fragments right here. Like, that's the only issue I had a problem with. And then you see here, she has this obsession, you know, with big red things, just random. And then here you have this big whole dormitory there's this big cylindrical area that's just flowing as like a social workspace and commercial area. Then you have the Lee Cargo, which was built on top of this whole stationary area. I don't know why, but it was built like in a I want to say an odd place, and then it doesn't. I don't want to say it doesn't fit in the area because it does because of these, but the circles I don't get. I felt like it still works because it needed some pizzazz, like because this right here is just very vague and like flat and boring, and then you see this, and it's just like wow, like okay, that's very interesting. I want to go up there. I want to see what it's about, you know. And then here, so the reason she has these is because she has an obsession with like these red things. Like I don't know why, but she loves having them in her designs. Like very. This one's more static and flat, but it's basically the same thing. Like it's just this big red thing sitting in the center of each architecture as a main point. This one being inside, more or less. Now, this brings me to the end of my architectural TED Talk. Now, remember, genders can always be equal if allowed the chance to change equality to equal. And that's just by me. I say that because I feel like even though women are allowed to vote, they're allowed to make some decisions, they're allowed to do certain things, I still feel like there's not enough equality between us. I still feel like men are here and women are probably about here. Like they can have some judgment towards things going on, but they don't get the chance to have full judgment or full reasoning for decision making and everything. Like in the 1900s, like they was like down here, you know, so like from this to this is a big change. So I feel like the equality should change, you know. Like it's not always about being the alpha male or being that stronger or person that can tell you what to do. Like it's always about having that I want to say that feminine, that female person that can always put a touch on things whenever you can't figure out that touch that it needs, you know. Like a woman's touch can always be a great thing, but a full man's growth without a woman's touch can be a very, very bad thing. It's kind of like leaving a man with a house to himself and it not having like, I want to say, you know how we is like with the like, but I don't want to branch out into that, you know. But equality, I feel like it has a chance to change, but they're not allowing it to change just because of the gender differences. So I feel like if we can make that equal across like the whole world, things would be a whole lot better. We would be able to see eye to eye and always have each other's back as small as a handshake. You know? So that brings me to the end of everything, and good night.